You felt it your whole life, even when you tried to ignore it. That quiet intensity in your spirit, that strange inner knowing that you couldn't quite explain, like something important was waiting for you, just beyond the edge of your awareness. You've been surrounded by people your entire life, and yet a part of you always felt like you were moving to a rhythm no one else could hear. While others chased titles, trends, and timelines, you kept sensing something deeper, something older than the world around you. Not everyone hears that call. Not everyone can. Because it doesn't come through noise. It comes through alignment. And the moment you paused long enough to feel it, to notice it, you knew. Your life wasn't going to look like everyone else's. That wasn't a glitch. That wasn't failure. That was the first sign, the signal, the activation. You didn't get here by chance. This isn't a random video playing on your screen. This is an echo of everything your soul's been whispering to you in the stillness. You've been picking up pieces of something divine for years, through heartbreaks, through quiet miracles, through the weird little moments that no one else noticed. All those chills you got at the most random times, all the vivid dreams that felt more like messages than imagination. That wasn't coincidence. That was contact. A deeper layer of reality trying to get your attention. This world conditions you to ignore that voice, to drown it in distractions. But that voice never stopped speaking. It waited. And the fact that you're still here, still searching, still feeling that pull, that alone proves something sacred. You haven't missed your calling. You're right on time for it. You were always meant to hear this message. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because you carry something ancient, something needed, something rare. The chaos in your life wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to shake the illusions loose. Because the version of you the world tried to create, that wasn't the real you. That was survival mode. That was camouflage. But the real you, the aligned you, the chosen you, that's who's waking up now. And with that awakening comes something no external teacher, system, or institution could ever give you. Remembrance. You are not becoming someone new. You are returning to the one you've always been. You know that feeling you've carried. The one that made you question everything. The one that made you look at the world sideways while everyone else seemed fine with just going through the motions. That's because you were never meant to live on the surface. You came here with depth, with insight, with an internal compass that refuses to stay silent, even when it costs you comfort. That restlessness wasn't anxiety. It was misalignment. And now, that inner tension is finally about to find its answer. There's a reason you've always felt just a little out of place. Like you were born with a code no one else around you could decipher. You could be in a room full of people and still feel like a guest in your own life. And you wondered, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just be like everyone else? But nothing was wrong. In fact, something was very right. You weren't made to blend in. You were wired for something entirely different, something the world isn't built to validate. Not yet. That disconnect you felt. It wasn't because you're broken, it's because you're designed for frequencies most people have forgotten how to hear. You see things others don't. You sense what they ignore. You feel deeper, dream harder, hurt stronger, and no one prepared you for that. No one told you that being chosen doesn't always come with clarity. Sometimes it comes with confusion, with silence, with seasons that strip you of every identity you tried to borrow just to survive. But you've survived. You've endured without a map, without applause, without explanation. And what's emerging from that survival is something unshakable. You. Not the version molded by expectation, the version shaped by fire, by trials, by divine appointments disguised as detours. Your difference was never a defect. It was your destiny trying to make itself known. You were placed here as a frequency disruptor, a truth carrier, a light in a time where many have forgotten their own. And you didn't need to be told that to feel it. You've always known. That's why the ordinary never satisfied you. That's why mediocrity felt like a lie. Because something ancient has been encoded into you from the beginning, and now it's activating. All those moments you kept quiet just to keep the peace. All the times you dulled your light so you wouldn't intimidate the room. All the nights you laid awake wondering if maybe you were too much, too sensitive, too intense. What if you were never too much? What if you were just too real for spaces that couldn't hold you? What if your very presence was meant to stretch the room, to call others higher, to shake the silence? You don't need to shrink to fit anymore. You don't need to apologize for being the one who notices what others pretend not to see. That discomfort you felt around superficiality, that wasn't judgment, that was discernment, a built-in detector for truth. You were made for deep waters, for real connections, for purpose that echoes beyond this lifetime. You've tried to walk away from the call, haven't you? You've tried to distract yourself, fit in, play it safe. But the pull never left. It always found a way to whisper through the noise. Because no matter how far you wandered, destiny doesn't expire. You can delay it, you can deny it, but you can't destroy it. And now, the calling you tried to run from is meeting you again, with more clarity, more power, and more urgency than ever before. Because this world isn't waiting for another follower. It's waiting for the one who remembers. And that one is you. You've wondered why your path has felt so heavy, why your road seemed longer, rougher, lonelier than those around you. While others appeared to glide through life with ease, you were handed storms. While they received applause, you received silence. While they were building connections, you were being torn away from everything familiar. And you questioned it, didn't you? You asked why your story had to be so full of struggle, why every breakthrough felt like it came with a battle, why the joy never came without some kind of invisible cost. But what you didn't realize then, what you may just be starting to understand now, is that this wasn't punishment. This wasn't bad luck. This was preparation. You weren't being delayed. You were being developed. Every hardship was a hammer. Every loss was a lesson. Every painful season, a hidden curriculum in spiritual mastery. Because the level of purpose you carry couldn't be handed to someone untested. You don't give fire to those who haven't walked through it. You don't entrust sacred assignments to people who haven't proven they can survive the silence. You see, chosen ones aren't trained in the spotlight. They're trained in secret, in the in-between spaces where no one claps, where the answers don't come, where you wake up with more questions than strength. You were put in positions that made you rely on something deeper than logic, something beyond what the world could give you. You were being trained to hear the voice within, to trust your inner compass, to obey even when there was no external reward. And while others were chasing validation, you were being stripped of it, so that your identity would no longer depend on the approval of the crowd. That stripping felt cruel, didn't it? Like everything was being taken from you while others were being celebrated. But what was really happening was the building of spiritual resilience. You were being prepared to carry weight, divine weight, and that kind of strength doesn't grow in comfort. You were never being overlooked, you were being refined. There is a difference. To be overlooked is to be dismissed. But you weren't dismissed. You were hidden. Hidden for a time. Hidden until the soil was deep enough, the roots strong enough, the identity solid enough to withstand the winds of influence. You didn't get shortcuts because your calling doesn't allow for them. You were being built from the inside out. And while others learned how to perform, you were learning how to endure. While they studied how to be liked, you were studying how to be true. And now, the fruit of that season is about to show. The strength you gained in silence is about to speak louder than words. And the very things that once broke you, they're becoming your evidence, your testimony, your armor. You've got to understand, chosen ones aren't picked for easy paths. They're chosen for necessary ones. And necessity doesn't ask what's comfortable. It asks what's required. Your life was never about fitting in or finding ease. It was about growing deep enough to hold the truth, steady enough to carry light into dark places. The storms that tried to drown you, they were actually shaping your authority, because you cannot guide others out of a fire you've never walked through yourself. And now that you've walked it, now that you've been through the places no one saw and still chose love, still chose growth, still chose to show up, you've been entrusted with something sacred. Not because you're perfect, but because you've proven that your soul won't fold under pressure. And that kind of integrity is rare. That kind of spiritual weight is what changes things. What you carry now is more than insight, it's embodiment. And it didn't come cheap. It came through the kind of training that only the chosen endure. And there's something else you've always known. Something you couldn't quite name, but it lived in your bones. You weren't sent here for a passive existence. You didn't come to this earth just to pay bills, follow trends, and fade quietly. You came with a mission, a sacred assignment buried so deep within you that even your most distracted years couldn't erase it. And you've felt it, haven't you? That tug on your heart when you're about to settle. That whisper in your spirit when you try to walk away. That strange ache that shows up not when you're failing, but when you're playing too small. That's your mission speaking. It doesn't yell. It doesn't beg. It just waits. Patiently. Quietly. Until you're ready to remember what you're carrying. This assignment on your life, it's not random. It's not interchangeable. It wasn't handed out by accident. You were specifically chosen for it. Because your soul carries a unique frequency. A vibration that unlocks something in others when you walk in your truth. There are people whose healing is attached to your authenticity. People whose freedom is waiting on your voice. People who won't rise until you decide to stop hiding. And that's the weight of the chosen. It's not about superiority. It's about responsibility. You were given certain battles because your spirit was strong enough to break through, and not just for yourself, but for those coming behind you. That's the power of a sacred assignment. It's never just about you. But the world doesn't make space for this kind of mission. It won't hand you a manual. It won't validate your calling. That's why so many chosen ones go through seasons of doubt, feeling lost, feeling like they missed their window. But the truth is, the mission was never meant to be clear from the outside. It was always designed to be activated from the inside. You don't discover it through achievement. You awaken it through alignment. And every painful moment, every strange detour, every closed door, it was all part of that alignment. You weren't being punished. You were being positioned. Because your path wasn't about being first. It was about being ready. And now you are. The silence that once felt empty is now sacred. The storms that once felt cruel are now your strength. The confusion that clouded your vision is now clearing. And rising from that is the mission that was always waiting. It doesn't need a title. It doesn't need a platform. It just needs your yes. Because when a chosen one remembers their assignment, when they stop asking for permission and start walking in purpose, the atmosphere shifts. Doors open, chains break, and what once looked like a burden suddenly reveals itself as the very thing that makes you unstoppable. You didn't go through all that pain just to survive. You went through it to awaken. And now the world doesn't need your perfection. It needs your obedience. The mission has been waiting on you. And now it's time. You thought you were being punished, didn't you? All those nights where the silence got so loud it echoed inside your chest. The seasons of your life where everything felt distant. People, opportunities, even your own sense of self. You tried to make sense of it, tried to stay positive, tried to hold on, but there were moments when even hope felt heavy. You asked, why me? And the only answer that came was more stillness, more waiting, more closed doors. And somewhere deep inside, you began to wonder if maybe you were forgotten. Maybe your time had passed. Maybe you weren't who you thought you were after all. But what if I told you the isolation wasn't abandonment? What if I told you it was protection, preparation, preservation? Because chosen ones don't get thrown into the spotlight, they get hidden, covered, separated from the noise so they can finally hear the truth of who they are, without the interference of the world's confusion. What you called loneliness was actually a sacred container, a divine cocoon wrapped around your life so that what was growing inside you wouldn't be contaminated by voices that didn't understand it. You didn't need more opinions. You didn't need more distractions. You needed silence. You needed stillness. Because when everything else falls away, what remains is real. And in that sacred silence, you were learning how to hear your own soul. You were learning how to distinguish your voice from fear's voice. How to feel what peace actually feels like. Not the fake kind that comes from comfort, but the real kind that comes from alignment. You were being taught by absence, trained by divine distance. Not so you would feel abandoned, but so you would become anchored. Anchored in something eternal. Anchored in something that doesn't shift every time the world does. And while others were busy being seen, you were being sharpened. While they were being celebrated, you were being calibrated. The isolation wasn't a delay in your purpose, it was an incubation. A time where destiny was quietly being knitted together inside the hidden places of your life. You see, chosen ones are often mistaken for forgotten ones, because their growth happens underground. It doesn't shout, it doesn't seek attention. But when the time is right, the unveiling is undeniable. The same people who once overlooked you won't even recognize you. Not because you've become someone new, but because they never truly saw who you were in the first place. The real you was being cultivated in the dark. And now, the darkness has done its job. There were moments in that isolation where you felt like giving up. Not because you were weak, but because you were shedding old skins. Letting go of identities that no longer served you. Walking away from people who once defined you. It felt like loss, but it was really liberation. The loneliness was sacred. The silence was sacred, because it carved space for the sacred to rise. And now, that sacred is waking up in you. You don't need to run from the isolation anymore. You don't need to resent it. You can honor it for what it was, a divine season of becoming. Because something is happening now. And if you're honest, you can feel it. It's not loud, but it's clear. There's a shift unfolding under the surface of your life. Things that once made sense no longer resonate. People you used to vibe with suddenly feel distant. Goals you used to chase don't hold the same weight. You're not confused. You're evolving. You're not broken. You're aligning. The things you once prayed for now feel too small for who you're becoming. That's how you know the shift is real. It doesn't start outside, it starts inside. Quietly, gently, like a whisper in your bones. The old version of you is falling away. And not because something is wrong, but because something sacred is waking up. You're not just changing, you're ascending. This isn't a surface-level transformation. This is a dismantling of the false, a dissolving of the masks. The part of you that stayed small to keep others comfortable? Gone. The part of you that chased validation instead of peace? Fading. The part of you that ignored your intuition just to fit in? It's being stripped away. Because the shift doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for convenience. It comes when your soul is ready. And whether you feel ready or not, your soul has already said yes. That's why the discomfort has grown. That's why you can't go back to the old version of yourself, no matter how hard you try. You've outgrown the lies. You've outgrown the roles. You've outgrown the illusion that survival is enough. You didn't come here to survive. You came to awaken. And awakening isn't always graceful. Sometimes it looks like breaking down in the middle of the day for no reason. Sometimes it feels like grief, like losing parts of yourself you thought you needed. Sometimes it feels like restlessness, like you're standing on the edge of something you can't name. That edge is real. And what's waiting on the other side is clarity. It's not about becoming someone better. It's about becoming someone true. This is a soul-level shift, a vibrational recalibration. Everything that doesn't match your calling is being removed, not as punishment, but as preparation. Because the weight of where you're going cannot be carried by who you used to be. You are being pulled higher. You are being invited deeper. And this invitation doesn't come with step-by-step instructions. It comes with faith, with intuition, with the kind of quiet certainty that doesn't need to explain itself. You're not crazy for feeling detached from the old world. You're not unstable for letting go of things that used to define you. You're just in the shift, the sacred space between what was and what will be. And that space requires trust, not in the outcome, but in the process. Not in what you can control, but in what your spirit already knows. You've entered the phase where peace is your compass, where alignment matters more than appearance, where integrity feels more valuable than approval. You're beginning to understand that the shift isn't just happening to you, it's happening for you. The universe is clearing space for the new. It's removing anything that vibrates beneath your true frequency. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it might hurt. But it's holy. It's necessary. It's sacred. You don't need to fight the shift. You don't need to fear it. You need to feel it. Let it do what it came to do. Let it shake what needs to be shaken. Let it end what needs to end. Because what's waiting on the other side isn't a better version of who you used to be. It's the most powerful version of who you've always been. The one who knows. The one who hears. The one who leads. The one who no longer waits to be chosen, because they know they already are. The shift has begun. And it's not just happening around you. It's happening through you. You've spent years waiting for someone to hand you the key, waiting for the moment when someone, anyone, would look you in the eyes and say, "Yes, it's you. You're the one. You're ready now." But that moment never came, because it was never meant to. You weren't supposed to be validated by the crowd. You were never designed to be crowned by the world. The authority you've been searching for out there, it's been sitting quietly inside you all along, waiting for your permission to rise. Not the kind of power that needs attention. Not the kind of strength that demands approval. But the kind of raw, ancient, sacred power that doesn't ask for applause because it's not interested in being admired. It's interested in shifting realities. The kind of power that wakes up slowly after seasons of silence, struggle, and separation. And now, it's stirring in you. You can feel it, can't you? That hum beneath your skin, that electricity in your chest. It's not anxiety, it's not adrenaline, it's activation. The world conditioned you to wait, to stay quiet, to not be too much. You learned to be polite when your spirit wanted to roar. You learned to blend in when you were born to break molds. But there comes a point in every chosen one's life when the power within can no longer be held back. That moment is not decided by man, it's initiated by your soul. And this is that moment. The time when you stop waiting for the green light and realize the light has always been in you. When you stop shrinking in rooms that were meant to expand under your presence. You were never meant to beg for access. You were designed to be the access. The door, the key, the shift. You don't need a title to be powerful. You don't need followers to be a leader. What you carry isn't dependent on recognition, it's dependent on remembrance. Because real power doesn't start the moment others believe in you, it starts the moment you do. The moment you stop looking for confirmation and start trusting the divine signature written in your spirit. You've always known you were different, always felt like you were carrying something others couldn't see. You tried to explain it, tried to fit it into words, But how do you describe something that was written in light, in fire, in codes only your soul can translate? The truth is, your power has been growing in the dark, in the places no one applauded, in the nights you wanted to give up but didn't, in the quiet sacrifices, the silent endurance, the invisible healing. Power doesn't come from ease, it comes from fire. And you've walked through fire long enough, not to be burned, but to be refined. Now, what's rising in you isn't ego, it's embodiment of everything you've learned, everything you've endured, everything you've become. You no longer need to convince anyone. You no longer need to explain yourself. Because power that's real doesn't shout, it radiates. It shifts the room without a word. It awakens others just by existing. That's the power you're stepping into. Not borrowed, not rehearsed, but real, unshakable, untamed. And with that power comes a new kind of responsibility. Not to the expectations of others, not to the projections they placed on you, but to your calling, to your light, to your voice. You're not here to impress. You're here to impact. You're not here to be liked. You're here to liberate. And that's why the resistance was so strong. That's why the enemy came for you early. Because even before you fully understood your gift, it was already disrupting darkness. You didn't have to speak for your energy to be felt. You didn't have to try for your presence to challenge what was false. That's the weight of being chosen. You carry what others are afraid to confront. And now you're being asked to stop hiding it, to stop taming it, to stop waiting for permission and start walking in your truth, even if it makes others uncomfortable, especially if it does, because your light isn't soft, it's fierce. It cuts through illusions. It wakes up the sleepers. It tears down the lies. And the world needs that now more than ever. Not another copy, not another echo, but you, in your fullness, in your sacred wildness, in your unapologetic truth. The moment you own your power, the atmosphere around you changes. Not because you force it, but because alignment carries weight. It draws what's meant for you and removes what isn't. And when you stop hiding, when you start showing up fully, others find the courage to do the same. That's the ripple effect of the chosen. You don't just rise, you raise others with you. But first, something has to fall. The chains, the labels, the lies, the identities you picked up just to survive. This is the season of release. You thought those chains would hold you forever. You thought the patterns were permanent. The guilt, the shame, the fear. You thought they defined you, but they were only part of the fire. And now that fire has finished its work. It didn't destroy you. It revealed you. It burned away the false so that the truth could stand. And that truth is this: you are free, not just in theory, not just in spirit, but in reality. The old has no claim on you now. The cycle is over. The spell is broken. The cage is open. And the only thing left is for you to walk out. You don't have to carry that weight anymore. The weight of who you used to be. The weight of what they said. The weight of what didn't work out. The version of you that had to fight for every inch of love, of belonging, of identity. That version is being laid to rest. And in its place rises someone who doesn't need to chase anything, because they've remembered what they are. Someone who no longer doubts their worth, because they've seen what they've survived. Someone who walks different, talks different, moves different, not because they're pretending, but because they've finally come home to themselves. You've broken the cycle by simply refusing to give up. You've shattered the mold by choosing to heal. You've risen from ashes others thought would bury you. And now your freedom isn't just for you. It's for everyone still trapped in a story they didn't choose. You are the proof that survival can become sovereignty, that pain can become prophecy, that the ones who were counted out are the ones who rise the highest. And now that you've risen, your very existence becomes a map, a guide, a light in someone else's dark. You are no longer just surviving, you are becoming the one you needed, becoming the chain breaker, the way shower, the truth bearer. And the world will never be the same because of it. There's something sacred happening beneath the surface right now, something more profound than just transformation. You're not just evolving, you're remembering. There's a version of you that existed before the world told you who to be, before you were wrapped in expectations, before you were molded by trauma, judgment, rejection, and roles you had to play just to feel safe, before the masks, before the performance, before the pressure to be palatable to people who didn't even know how to love themselves. That original version, the purest version of you, is still in there. It's been waiting, watching, whispering from behind your eyes, hoping you'd slow down long enough to hear it. You weren't lost, you were just layered, covered, conditioned. And now, every false identity is starting to crack. Not because you're broken, but because you're breaking through. You've looked into mirrors distorted by opinions, trying to find your reflection in the approval of others. You've adjusted your tone, your truth, your entire spirit just to avoid conflict, to feel accepted, to stay in spaces that couldn't contain your calling. You tried to earn worthiness in rooms that were never worthy of you to begin with. And in doing so, a part of you went quiet. But silence isn't the same as stillness. Your soul never stopped speaking. It just got drowned out by survival. But now, in the aftermath of everything you've walked through, in the clarity that only pain can produce, something inside you is rising, fierce, whole, unapologetic. This version of you isn't looking for validation. It isn't seeking permission. It simply is, rooted in truth, grounded in divinity, awake in a world still pretending to be asleep. You've shed too many tears to keep living in a version of yourself that's only half alive. You've outgrown the people, the spaces, the beliefs that asked you to shrink. And you're realizing now that losing them wasn't loss, it was alignment. You weren't abandoned, you were redirected, because you cannot carry a divine identity into places that are allergic to authenticity. You were set apart for a reason. And as you begin to fully embody who you are, the world around you begins to shift. The things that once tempted you fall flat. The people who once drained you disappear. And the truth you used to fear becomes the foundation you stand on. You no longer crave shallow connections, because you've tasted what it means to know yourself on a soul level. You're not desperate for attention, because you've met your spirit in the silence and realized nothing external can replicate that kind of intimacy. You're not looking for a label to define you anymore, because the divine doesn't fit into categories. You are not who they said you were. You're not the mistakes, the missteps, the misjudgments. You are not the character they created in their limited understanding of you. You are not the echoes of old stories that no longer resonate with your current frequency. You are divine essence wrapped in human form. You are fire and water, stillness and storm. You are the walking evidence that healing is real and rebirth is possible. The world told you to be soft, quiet, agreeable, easy to digest. But your spirit has other plans. It's not here to play a role. It's here to lead, to provoke, to awaken. You didn't survive all that pain just to play small now. You didn't come this far to still be afraid of being misunderstood. Let them misunderstand. Let them whisper. You've got galaxies in your blood and a revolution in your bones. You weren't sent here to fit in. You were sent here to disrupt. And every part of you that once thought it had to shrink to be loved is now realizing love is your origin, not your reward. And now, here you are, at the edge of everything you've ever wanted, at the threshold of the life that's been calling to you through every storm, every setback, every sacred whisper you couldn't explain. This is the turning point, the final moment of decision. Not a casual choice, not a comfortable one. A soul level, irreversible, destiny-altering yes. The path has always been there, but this is the moment you step onto it fully. Not with hesitation, not with apology, but with clarity, with conviction, with a fire in your chest that says, I remember who I am, and I refuse to go back. You've waited for the stars to align, for signs, for timing. But the truth is, everything has already lined up. You are not missing anything. You are not behind. You are not unprepared. You have been prepared in silence, forged in pressure, refined in fire. This is not your dress rehearsal. This is the moment the curtain rises. And the question is not if you're ready. The real question is, are you willing? Willing to be seen in your fullness. Willing to walk away from everything that no longer resonates. Willing to accept that you are the chosen one. Not someday, not eventually, but now. Because the moment you give your yes, everything begins to move. Not just in theory, but in reality. Doors open, people appear, resources align. Your entire life shifts into motion, not because you forced it, but because you finally agreed to match your movement with your mission. And yes, it will require faith. Yes, it will demand sacrifices. But the cost of staying the same is greater. You already know what it's like to dim your light, to question your voice, to hold back your truth. That life is too small for who you've become. There's no room left in that story, and the new chapter won't write itself. So take the step, speak the word, burn the bridge if you have to, not to destroy what was, but to declare that what's coming matters more. You're not waiting for destiny to come find you. You are destiny. You're not hoping the right door opens. You are the door. And as you walk forward, into the unknown, into the divine, into the power you once doubted, you'll realize something extraordinary. The moment you say yes to the real you, the universe says yes right back. Every obstacle becomes an invitation. Every fear becomes fuel. Every day becomes sacred. Not because life gets easier, but because you get clearer. You don't owe the world another explanation. You don't owe your past another apology. You owe yourself this, to finally, fearlessly, become. Because you were never just chosen to awaken. You were chosen to lead, to shift, to create, to liberate. And now, the world is watching. Not because they need another performer, but because they need someone real. And that someone is you. This is not the beginning of a new dream. It's the return to the one you were born with. The one buried beneath survival. The one ignited by every fire you walked through. This is it. Your moment, your power, your truth, and your yes.